High above the rolling emerald hills of Whispering Willow Valley, the evening sun began its slow and graceful descent towards the distant horizon, painting the sky in gentle washes of lavender, soft peach, and pale rose gold. In a small, round-windowed wooden cottage nestled snugly against the ancient mossy roots of a giant oak tree lived Barnaby, a gentle little red panda with soft silver-tipped russet fur, warm amber eyes, and a cozy hand-knitted seafoam blue scarf wrapped loosely around his neck. Barnaby loved this peaceful time of day more than any other. As the vibrant golden daylight softened into cool twilight, he stepped out onto his front porch, leaning against the smooth wooden railing to breathe in the crisp, pine-scented air. Below in the valley, the very first whispers of evening fog were beginning to gather, rising like delicate ribbons of white velvet from the meandering crystal waters of Willow Creek. The entire valley was preparing for its nightly slumber, and Barnaby watched with quiet joy as the landscape slowly transformed into a realm of soothing shadows, soft colors, and gentle, comforting nighttime beauty. The evening air carried a pleasant coolness, smelling faintly of damp earth, sweet wild clover, and the deeply comforting aroma of dried chamomile flowers drifting from Barnaby's kitchen window. Inside his quiet cottage, his heavy iron kettle rested on the warm brick hearth, emitting a gentle puff of steam that danced merrily in the warm firelight. Barnaby pulled his cozy scarf a little tighter around his shoulders and smiled as he looked out toward the surrounding rolling hills. Every single evening, when the sun dipped low behind the mountain peaks, a thick, velvety blanket of fog slowly rolled down from the mist-crowned summit of Misty Ridge. It drifted across the open meadows and tucked every tree, flower, and sleepy woodland creature into a warm layer of nighttime serenity. It was known throughout the valley as the cozy blanket of fog, for whenever it wrapped around the countryside, a profound quiet fell over the land, softening every distant sound into a gentle whisper and calling all living things to rest and rejuvenate. Inside the cozy wooden kitchen, warm golden candlelight danced across the cedar cupboards and copper teapots resting on the shelf. Barnaby took a deep, relaxing breath, letting his lungs fill with the cool mist that was already beginning to settle over his carefully tended garden patches. He walked down the 3 smooth wooden steps of his porch, his small padded paws stepping softly onto the damp clover carpet below. In the garden, the golden evening primrose blossoms were slowly curling shut, folding their delicate yellow petals to protect their sweet nectar until the morning sun returned. Nearby, a family of tiny blue butterflies nestled beneath the wide umbrella of a velvet dock leaf, their delicate wings folded neatly as they drifted off into sleep. Barnaby carefully adjusted a small carved wooden sign near his garden gate that read, "Welcome friends to Willow Creek." He loved how incredibly calm and safe the valley felt at this hour, as if the entire world was drawing a deep, peaceful breath in unison before closing its eyes for the night. The stillness was complete, bringing a soothing sense of harmony to his heart. The evening dew glistened upon the clover leaves like tiny diamonds scattered across a dark velvet blanket. Taking a lantern made of polished brass and stained yellow glass from an iron hook beside his doorway, Barnaby lit the tiny beeswax candle within using a wooden match. A warm, amber glow blossomed from the lantern, casting a soft ring of light around his feet as he set off down the winding cobblestone path that led toward the center of the valley. Tonight, he planned to walk down to the old wooden bridge crossing Willow Creek, to watch the thickest part of the fog gather over the quiet waters. Along the path, the tall silver birch trees stood like watchful guardians, their pale bark glistening with fine droplets of evening dew. The leaves overhead rustled with a whisper-soft sound, like a gentle mother singing a hush-a-bye lullaby to the roosting songbirds high above in the leafy canopy. Barnaby walked slowly, savoring every quiet moment of his twilight stroll through the peaceful woodland realm. The golden lantern light illuminated the smooth cobblestones beneath his small paws, casting long, soft shadows that flickered against the damp earth. The ancient trees lined the winding trail like old friends, their leafy canopies providing a peaceful shelter from the cool evening air. As Barnaby walked along the winding path, his light steps made almost no sound on the moist earth. The fog was deepening now, rolling softly between the dark tree trunks like waves of fluffy cloud milk. It wrapped around the base of the ancient oaks, hiding their gnarled roots in fluffy billows of pure white mist. Barnaby paused near a thick patch of wild ferns, where a small mother hedgehog named Harriet was quietly tucking her 3 tiny hedgehoglets into a cozy nest of dry oak leaves and soft green moss. Harriet looked up with a warm, sleepy smile and gave Barnaby a gentle nod. "Good evening, Barnaby," Harriet murmured softly, her voice barely louder than the rustle of the leaves. "The fog is extra soft tonight, isn't it?" Barnaby nodded gently, his amber eyes twinkling in the golden candlelight. "It certainly is, Harriet," he replied softly. "Tucking everyone in nice and cozy for a night of sweet dreams." The little hedgehog family snuggled closer together in their leafy bed, sighing with complete contentment as the cool mist settled over their home. Continuing along the winding path, Barnaby felt a pleasant warmth spreading through his chest. The magic of the evening fog was not just in its breathtaking visual beauty, but in the peaceful hush it brought to every corner of the forest. The usual daytime chatter of chirping crickets, buzzing bees, and scampering squirrels faded away, replaced by the deep, tranquil stillness of twilight. Up ahead, the path veered near a calm, clear pond where water lilies floated like starry constellations upon the dark glass surface. A gentle breeze blew across the pond, rippling the water with soft, rhythmic sounds that echoed like a gentle heartbeat. Barnaby paused on the grassy bank, holding his lantern high to admire the reflection of the emerging evening stars, which glittered softly through the thin top layer of misty clouds. The tranquility of the water washed over his spirit, leaving him feeling peaceful and refreshed. The tranquil pond mirrored the twilight sky with perfect clarity, displaying the quiet beauty of drifting clouds and twinkling stars. The lily pads swayed lazily on the water's surface as tiny ripples smoothed out into complete stillness. Near the edge of the pond sat Oliver, a wise old barn owl with soft speckled feathers and big, calm golden eyes. Oliver was perched comfortably on a low oak branch, wrapped snugly in a hand-woven wool scarf of dark plum and cream. Unlike most owls who stayed awake all night, Oliver loved the early evening mist and preferred to sleep right through the night alongside his valley friends. "Hello, young Barnaby," Oliver hooted softly, his voice smooth and soothing as a warm mug of hot cocoa. "Walking with the fog tonight, I see." "Yes, Oliver," Barnaby answered with a gentle smile. "It feels like the whole valley is putting on its softest winter blanket early tonight." Oliver tilted his head, watching the fog drift across the water. "Indeed it does, my small friend. Rest comes easily when the sky wraps us so tenderly in its care. Good night, Barnaby." Oliver the owl adjusted his soft plum-colored scarf, his large golden eyes reflecting the warm amber light of Barnaby's lantern. He blinked slowly, letting out a gentle, comforting hoot that echoed softly through the misty trees. Barnaby bade Oliver a quiet good night and resumed his stroll along the soft path toward Willow Creek. The mist was growing thicker now, wrapping around his boots like a playful kitten, yet remaining wonderfully warm and light against his paws. The gentle humidity in the air felt refreshing against his fur, carrying the faint, soothing perfume of sweet pine resin and night-blooming jasmine. Every step Barnaby took seemed to sink effortlessly into the soft earth, as if the ground itself was cushioned with velvet moss. He noticed how the tall pine trees seemed to lean closer together, as though whispering quiet bedtime stories to one another in the gathering dusk. The twilight sky had now deepened into a rich navy indigo, sprinkled with thousands of faint, shimmering stars that flickered like tiny diamonds in the vast celestial dome. The mist swirled gently around his small legs, soft as down feathers and cool against his fur. Barnaby continued his peaceful stroll, enjoying the rhythmic sound of his soft footfalls along the mossy path. The night air was alive with the gentle essence of nature, carrying whispers of sweet balsam pine, wet earth, and blossoming night flowers. Soon, the soft, melodious gurgle of Willow Creek reached Barnaby's ears. The creek flowed smoothly over rounded river stones, creating a steady, calming rhythm that sounded like a continuous stream of gentle shushing. Barnaby stepped onto the old arched wooden bridge that spanned the water. The wooden planks beneath his paws were smooth and cool, worn down by years of friendly foot travel between the valley homes. Standing at the center of the bridge, Barnaby rested his small hands on the railing and looked down into the water. The fog was resting heavily upon the surface of the creek, transforming the stream into a mysterious, beautiful river of light and cloud. Small river stones peeked out from the mist like tiny sleeping turtles in a sea of white velvet, lulling Barnaby into an even deeper state of serene relaxation. Resting his paws on the weathered wooden handrail of Willow Creek Bridge, Barnaby listened to the liquid music of the flowing water. The creek sang a quiet, endless song of peace as it wound its way through the misty valley. The fog hung over the stream like a floating ribbon of silver silk, blurring the line between water and air. As Barnaby watched the water flow beneath the bridge, he noticed a tiny wooden boat drifting lazily downstream. It was no larger than a teacup, carved from a dry walnut shell, with a tiny leaf sail tucked neatly inside. The little boat glided smoothly through the floating mist, riding the gentle current without a sound. Barnaby smiled, knowing it had been crafted by Pip, the industrious little field mouse who lived near the watermill. Pip loved setting small leaf boats adrift each evening as a peaceful ritual to signal the end of the day's work and the beginning of night. Watching the tiny boat disappear into the soft wall of fog further downstream brought a deep sense of contentment to Barnaby's heart. Everything in the valley moved at a slow, peaceful pace, unhurried, graceful, and full of quiet joy. The tiny walnut shell boat drifted peacefully into the mist, carrying with it the quiet wishes of the day. Barnaby watched its leaf sail catch the faint evening breeze until it was completely hidden by the cloud of fog. Pip's small ritual was a reminder of the simple joys that filled their lives in the valley. Barnaby set his brass lantern down on the wooden bridge deck, allowing its warm light to form a pool of gold in the surrounding mist. He sat down quietly, crossing his legs and resting his chin on his paws. The night air was perfectly calm, without a single harsh gust of wind to disturb the tranquility. He closed his eyes for a moment, listening intently to the symphony of nocturnal quietness. He could hear the faint drip of dew falling from leaf to leaf, the soft sigh of the pine branches high above, and the steady, comforting gurgle of the stream below. Each sound was muted by the thick blanket of fog, rendered soft, round, and deeply relaxing to his ears. He felt at one with the peaceful night, letting go of all lingering thoughts of the busy day. Sitting cross-legged on the wooden planks of the bridge, Barnaby let his body settle into deep relaxation. The cool, damp air was deeply soothing against his face, refreshing his spirit with every slow breath. The brass lantern cast a soothing golden glow that softened the surrounding mist into a halo of warm light. After several moments of peaceful meditation on the bridge, Barnaby heard soft, muffled footsteps approaching from the far side of the creek. Out from the mist stepped Clara, the kind badger who managed the valley's community herb garden. Clara was wearing her cozy knitted cardigan and carrying a small wicker basket filled with freshly gathered lavender twigs and dried chamomile blossoms. "Oh, good evening, Barnaby," Clara said softly, her voice filled with warmth. "I didn't expect to find anyone out on the bridge at this hour." "Good evening, Clara," Barnaby replied, standing up gently. "I was just watching the fog gather over the creek. It's so wonderfully peaceful tonight." Clara smiled warmly, nodding her agreement as she adjusted her wicker basket. "It really is a special evening," she agreed. Clara the badger adjusted her small wicker basket, her warm eyes shining with gentle kindness in the foggy darkness. She picked up a sprig of dried lavender and inhaled its calming aroma with a contented smile. The community garden was a place of abundance and care, where herbs were grown to bring comfort and healing to all the valley neighbors. "I was just on my way back from the herb garden," Clara explained, offering Barnaby a small bundle of tied lavender. "I picked a little extra lavender for everyone tonight. If you place a small sprig under your pillow tonight, your dreams will be filled with sweet, calming scents of midsummer meadows." Barnaby accepted the gift with heartfelt gratitude, holding the lavender close to his nose and inhaling its soothing fragrance. "Thank you so much, Clara. This is lovely. Are you heading home to bed now?" "Yes," Clara answered with a soft, gentle yawn. "My cozy warm burrow is calling me. The fog has settled so nicely over my roof, it feels like living inside a soft white cloud. Good night, dear Barnaby. Sleep well." Barnaby held the small lavender bundle close, marveling at its intense, relaxing fragrance. The sweet scent of lavender had a magical way of easing the mind and preparing the soul for peaceful dreams. Clara gave a final, gentle wave as she turned toward her cozy burrow path. Barnaby watched her go, knowing that across the entire valley, every friend was settling down into their warm beds for a night of deep, uninterrupted rest. "Good night, Clara, sleep tight," Barnaby called out softly as Clara disappeared into the blanket of fog, her lantern flame fading into a soft yellow glow before vanishing entirely into the night. Barnaby picked up his own lantern and began his journey back toward his hilltop cottage. The fog was now fully formed across the entire expanse of Whispering Willow Valley. It reached from the floor of the valley all the way up to the lower branches of the ancient trees, turning the world into a realm of dreamlike softness. Buildings, stone walls, and garden fences dissolved into gentle silhouettes, removing all sharp edges from the world and leaving behind only cozy shapes, soft shadows, and a quiet sense of security. The fog had now blanketed the entire landscape in a seamless layer of white velvet. Barnaby walked back up the winding path, watching his cottage chimney release a faint trail of cedar smoke that blended harmoniously with the mist. The world had become quiet, soft, and intimate. All distance seemed to shorten, and every cozy cottage felt closer and safer under the protective canopy of the nighttime fog. As Barnaby walked up the winding meadow path, the grass on either side was heavy with crystal dew. Each tiny droplet caught the amber reflection of his lantern light, sparkling like tiny diamonds scattered across a dark green carpet. A small family of field mice scuttled quietly into their cozy burrow beneath an old stone wall, waving their tiny paws to Barnaby as they closed their wooden door for the night. Barnaby waved back softly, feeling connected to every creature that called this tranquil valley home. Here, everyone looked out for one another, and every evening ended with the same quiet blessing of peace and shared rest under the starlit sky. He felt fortunate to live in such a harmonious community. Dewdrops glittered on every blade of grass, transforming the hillside meadow into a field of stars under the rising moon. The little field mouse family was nestled snugly inside their warm stone wall burrow, listening to the gentle sigh of the wind outside. Barnaby walked with light, mindful steps, taking care not to disturb the peaceful rest of the small creatures sleeping beneath the soil. Halfway up the hill, Barnaby passed by the old stone well. The stone was smooth and covered in a blanket of soft green velvet moss that felt plush under his touch. Resting on the rim of the well was a small clay saucer filled with clean rainwater, where a tired little bumblebee was taking a final sip before tucking itself inside a closed clover blossom nearby. Barnaby paused for a moment, gently placing a small leaf over the bee's sleeping flower to shelter it from the nighttime dew. He took great care in these tiny acts of kindness, knowing that peace in the valley was built upon countless small gestures of love and gentle care. Satisfied, he continued up the hill toward home. Barnaby gently smoothed the green moss around the old stone well, admiring the tiny drops of water clinging to its velvety surface. The sleeping bee remained snug inside the closed clover petal, safe beneath the protective leaf Barnaby had provided. These simple acts of caring brought a deep sense of fulfillment to his quiet life, reinforcing the gentle harmony that bound the valley together. The incline grew a bit steeper as Barnaby neared his oak tree cottage, but his steps remained light and steady. With every breath he took, he felt the peaceful atmosphere of the night sinking deeper into his mind and body. The heavy stresses and energetic activities of the day were now far behind him, melted away by the cool, comforting mist. Looking back down at the valley from the elevated hillside path, Barnaby was treated to a breathtaking sight. The entire valley floor lay submerged beneath a smooth sea of white mist, illuminated from above by the soft silver radiance of the moon, which had now risen above the eastern mountain peaks, flooding the world with gentle light. As he reached the crest of the hill, Barnaby looked back down at the valley stretched out beneath the moonlight. The view was breathtakingly serene. The thick sea of fog covered everything, turning the familiar landscape into a quiet ocean of white clouds. The silver moonlight sparkled across the top of the mist, creating a scene of otherworldly beauty and profound tranquility. The moonlight turned the ocean of fog into a shimmering blanket of pearl and alabaster. Here and there, the very tops of the tallest pine trees poked through the mist like dark green islands resting in a calm, mystical sea. Barnaby stood quietly for a long while, admiring the stillness. There was no noise from the outside world, no rush, no worry. Just the quiet earth turning slowly under the vast cosmos, wrapped tightly in its cozy blanket of fog. He felt a deep sense of harmony with the universe, knowing that night was nature's way of healing, resting, and preparing for another bright morning filled with joy and promise. The tallest pine trees poked through the mist like dark green mountain peaks rising out of a cloud ocean. Barnaby stood quietly, letting the majesty of the night fill his heart with quiet wonder. There was no noise, no movement, no urgency. Just the vast, peaceful earth resting under the silent stars. He drew a deep breath of mountain air, feeling completely renewed and deeply thankful. The tallest pine trees poked through the mist like dark green mountain peaks rising out of a cloud ocean. Turning back toward his cottage, Barnaby saw the warm yellow light still glowing softly through his front windows. The fire in his hearth had burned down to a gentle heap of glowing embers, casting a pleasant, flickering warmth across his cozy living room. He opened his front gate with a quiet click, walked across his porch, and stepped inside, closing the heavy wooden door behind him to lock in the warmth. The interior of the cottage smelled delightfully of cedar wood, dried lavender, and the faint, sweet aroma of cinnamon tea. He hung his brass lantern on its peg by the door and blew out the small beeswax candle within, stepping fully into the comfort of home. Stepping inside his cottage, Barnaby felt the enveloping embrace of home. The warmth from the stone fireplace was gentle and inviting, filling the air with the cozy fragrance of seasoned cedar and oak logs. He closed the heavy wooden door, latching it securely against the night chill. Inside, every object was familiar and comforting, filled with memories of peaceful days and restful nights. Stepping inside his cottage, Barnaby felt the enveloping embrace of home. Barnaby walked over to his kitchen stove, where his iron kettle was still sitting cozy and warm. He poured the remaining warm chamomile tea into his favorite ceramic mug, which was painted with tiny blue wildflowers. Carrying his mug into the living room, he sank into his favorite plush armchair, positioned right beside the wide bay window. He wrapped his paws around the warm ceramic mug, feeling the soothing heat spread through his fingers and arms. Outside the glass window, the fog pressed gently against the panes, as if tucking the house itself into a warm embrace. Barnaby took a slow sip of tea, letting its soothing herbal flavor warm his throat and relax his body. Sitting in his favorite armchair with the warm ceramic mug in his paws, Barnaby felt a pleasant heaviness settle over his limbs. The chamomile tea warmed him from the inside out, relaxing his stomach and soothing his mind. Outside the bay window, the fog swirled in gentle, hypnotizing patterns against the glass. He leaned back into the soft cushions, letting out a long, contented sigh. From his comfortable armchair, Barnaby watched the fog weave intricate, slow-moving patterns across the glass window. The mist moved like quiet silk, curling around the flower boxes outside and blanketing the porch railing in soft white fleece. Inside the room, the glowing red embers of the fireplace gave off a comforting, rhythmic crackle, like a quiet lullaby sung by the hearth. Barnaby felt his eyelids growing pleasantly heavy. His shoulders relaxed completely, sinking deep into the soft cushions of his armchair. He took another gentle sip of chamomile tea, listening to the peaceful silence that filled every nook and cranny of his warm home, feeling cozy and secure. The embers in the fireplace glowed with a deep, comforting ruby light, casting warm flickering shadows across the wooden floorboards. Barnaby watched the fog dance outside, feeling completely sheltered from the cold world outside. His eyelids fluttered softly as sleep began to tug at the edges of his consciousness. The room was a sanctuary of safety, warmth, and absolute quiet. The embers in the fireplace glowed with a deep, comforting ruby light, casting warm flickering shadows across the wooden floorboards. After finishing his tea, Barnaby set the empty mug on the small wooden side table next to his chair. He stood up slowly, stretching his arms and tail with a long, satisfying yawn. It was time to prepare for bed. He walked over to his bookshelf, where rows of old leather-bound storybooks sat neatly arranged. He pulled out a slender book filled with ancient bedtime tales of the stars and placed it on his nightstand. Then, he walked to his bedroom at the back of the cottage. His bed was a sturdy frame of carved oak, piled high with soft feather pillows and covered with a thick, hand-quilted blanket of sea green wool that promised total comfort. Setting his mug down on the wooden side table, Barnaby stretched lazily, feeling every muscle in his back and shoulders relax. He selected his favorite bedtime book of Starlight tales and carried it into his bedroom. The carved oak bed looked irresistible, piled high with plush feather pillows and covered in a thick sea green wool quilt that promised warmth and total comfort. Setting his mug down on the wooden side table, Barnaby stretched lazily, feeling every muscle in his back and shoulders relax. Barnaby unknitted his seafoam blue scarf and carefully hung it on a wooden peg near his wardrobe. He unbuttoned his soft cotton vest, placing it neatly on a chair. He picked up the sprig of lavender that Clara had given him earlier and tucked it gently beneath his main pillow, right where his ear would rest. Immediately, a delicate wave of soothing lavender perfume filled the sleeping alcove. Barnaby walked over to his bedroom window to draw the heavy velvet curtains, but paused to look out one last time. The fog outside had risen just enough to reach his bedroom window level, creating the illusion that his entire cottage was floating high up in the clouds. Barnaby hung his blue knitted scarf on its wooden peg and set the fresh lavender sprig beneath his pillow. The soothing floral fragrance immediately filled his sleeping alcove, creating an atmosphere of pure tranquility. He drew the heavy velvet window curtains closed, leaving just a sliver of moonlight to guide his way to bed. Everything was ready for a long, beautiful night of dreamful rest. The world outside was completely motionless. Not a single leaf fluttered, not a single shadow moved out of place. The cozy blanket of fog had done its wonderful work, bringing a total, blissful peace to Whispering Willow Valley. Barnaby drew the soft velvet curtains closed, leaving just a tiny crack open so a sliver of gentle moonlight could filter inside. He climbed into his large, plush bed, pulling the thick sea green wool quilt all the way up to his chin. The mattress was wonderfully soft, contouring to his body and supporting him in total comfort. He rested his head against the plump feather pillow, feeling the soothing scent of lavender surround him as he relaxed. Climbing into his plush bed, Barnaby felt the soft feather mattress yield beneath his body, cradling him in total comfort. He pulled the heavy sea green quilt up to his chin, feeling snug and secure. The scent of fresh lavender wafted gently from his pillow, relaxing his thoughts and easing his mind into a state of serene calm. Outside, the fog continued its quiet vigil over the valley. As Barnaby lay beneath his heavy sea green quilt, he listened attentively to his own slow, steady breathing. Inhale softness, exhale tension. Inhale peace, exhale quiet. His body felt heavy in the most pleasant and relaxing way possible, every muscle completely untangled and free from tightness. He thought back to his serene evening walk through the valley, the quiet wooden bridge, the sleepy hedgehogs in their leaf nest, wise old Oliver perched in his plum scarf, and kind Clara carrying her basket of fresh herbs. All of them were now tucked safely inside their own cozy homes, sleeping deeply under the same magnificent blanket of fog. A deep feeling of gratitude filled Barnaby's heart for his quiet home, his comfortable bed, and his gentle woodland friends. Laying in the dark, Barnaby focused on his breathing, letting each slow inhale bring peace and each quiet exhale release tension. He thought of all his friends sleeping across the valley, Harriet and her hoglets, wise Oliver, Pip the field mouse, and Clara the badger. They were all wrapped in the same warm blanket of fog, safe, cozy, and deeply at rest. The fireplace embers in the hearth outside gave off one final, soft pop before settling into quiet warmth. The air in the bedroom was perfectly tempered, neither too hot nor too cold, refreshed by the clean mountain mist outside the window. Barnaby closed his eyes, letting his imagination drift gently into peaceful realms. In his mind's eye, he saw the fog as a living, caring presence, spreading its giant soft wings over the entire earth, cradling every forest, meadow, river, and mountain in a loving, peaceful embrace. He imagined floating softly upon the mist, drifting weightlessly through a calm twilight sky filled with pastel clouds and glowing silver stars, completely free from care and worry. The room grew darker as the last fireplace embers faded into soft gray ash, but the warmth inside the cedar cottage remained perfectly cozy. Barnaby closed his eyes and imagined floating gently upon the soft clouds of fog, rising into the star-filled night sky. He felt weightless, free from all worry, carried on a gentle tide of peace and endless quiet. The room grew darker as the last fireplace embers faded into soft gray ash, but the warmth inside the cedar cottage remained perfectly cozy. With every passing minute, the subtle boundary between awake and asleep became delightfully blurred. Thoughts drifted through Barnaby's resting mind like soft autumn leaves floating down a quiet woodland stream, slow, unhurried, and peaceful. He didn't try to hold on to any single thought, he simply let them drift past, fading smoothly into the quiet background of his consciousness. Outside, the thick fog continued to hold Whispering Willow Valley in its quiet protection, warding off any cold winds or disturbing sounds. The cedar cottage was a sanctuary of comfort, safety, and absolute warmth. Barnaby snuggled even deeper into his quilt, pulling the plush fabric close around his neck as he let go of the day. His thoughts became slow and dreamy, drifting past like soft white clouds across a blue summer sky. He let go of every remaining awareness of the day, sinking deeper and deeper into the soft mattress. The cottage held him in its warm, sturdy arms, protecting his sleep from any disturbance. He felt safe, loved, and deeply content in his quiet corner of the world. His thoughts became slow and dreamy, drifting past like soft white clouds across a blue summer sky. Far out in the deep surrounding forest, the tall pine trees stood asleep, their roots resting deep in the fertile earth while drinking in the nourishing moisture of the night mist. The wild meadow flowers rested their petals, dreaming of the gentle morning sun that would arrive in its own sweet time. The little mountain streams flowed onward with their smooth, soothing rhythm, carrying peaceful lullabies out toward the distant ocean. Everything in nature knew when it was time to rest, accepting the night with open arms and peaceful hearts. Barnaby felt himself drifting further into that same natural rhythm, syncing his breath with the slow, gentle pulse of the sleeping valley, surrendering to rest. Deep in the surrounding forest, the ancient trees rested their branches, drinking in the nourishing night air. The wild streams flowed gently over smooth stones, singing quiet lullabies that resonated through the earth. Everything in nature was participating in this universal night of healing rest, yielding willingly to the gentle rhythm of sleep and renewal. Deep in the surrounding forest, the ancient trees rested their branches, drinking in the nourishing night air. In the quiet stillness of his bedroom, Barnaby felt a gentle warmth spread from his tiny toes all the way to the tip of his ears. The sweet lavender scent beneath his pillow seemed to grow even softer, wrapping his senses in a comforting cocoon of tranquility. He let out a long, quiet sigh of utter contentment. There was nothing he needed to do, nowhere he needed to go, and nothing he needed to think about. This sacred night was entirely dedicated to deep, restorative sleep. The cozy blanket of fog was guarding his home and his valley, and he was completely safe, cherished, warm, and deeply at peace within his cozy nest. A pleasant warmth flooded his limbs as Barnaby relaxed his body completely. His toes, his paws, his back, and his ears felt completely relaxed and heavy against the bed. The lavender aroma under his pillow enveloped him in a soothing blanket of fragrance. He let out one final, long sigh, surrendering fully to the irresistible pull of deep sleep. A pleasant warmth flooded his limbs as Barnaby relaxed his body completely. His slow breathing settled even further, becoming as rhythmic and smooth as the gentle waves of fog drifting across the meadow outside. One deep, quiet breath in, and a long, relaxing breath out. His eyelids felt as heavy as plush velvet curtains closing after a beautiful, satisfying performance. Outside, a gentle night bird let out one single, soft note, a quiet goodnight song that dissolved almost instantly into the thick, protective mist. The valley was now completely wrapped in absolute silence, a vast world of peaceful dreams and quiet wonder waiting patiently beneath the silver rays of the moon as night held the earth in sweet repose. His breathing settled into a quiet, rhythmic pattern, slow and effortless. One quiet breath in, one relaxing breath out. The silence of the house was absolute, broken only by the soft sigh of the wind in the oak tree outside. The valley slept on, cradled beneath the silver moon and wrapped tightly in its cozy blanket of fog. His breathing settled into a quiet, rhythmic pattern, slow and effortless. One quiet breath in, one relaxing breath out. As Barnaby sank deeper into his dream state, a beautiful vision unfolded before his sleepy mind. He saw himself walking along a luminous path made entirely of soft, glowing starlight that stretched across the top of the floating fog. Below him, Whispering Willow Valley looked like a magical kingdom of pure white clouds, softly illuminated from within by the golden glow of thousands of tiny fireflies. The air in his dream was warm and smelled delightfully of sweet honey and fresh spring clover. He walked along the starlit path without any effort at all, feeling lighter than a fluffy goose feather carried on a soft summer breeze, filled with pure joy. In his dream, Barnaby walked upon a shimmering bridge of starlight that spanned across the tops of the misty clouds. The sky above was a vast dome of indigo, twinkling with millions of friendly stars. The fog beneath his feet felt soft as wool, supporting him with every step. He felt a joyful lightness in his heart, exploring a magical realm of quiet wonder. In his dream, Barnaby walked upon a shimmering bridge of starlight that spanned across the tops of the misty clouds. Along this starlit dream path, he met his dear valley friends once again. Oliver the owl was flying effortlessly alongside him, his wings made of woven moonlight as he smiled warmly and glided through the sky. Clara the badger was sitting comfortably on a floating cloud made of purple lavender blossoms, pouring cups of warm starry tea for all the woodland creatures. Little Pip the field mouse was sailing his carved walnut shell boat through a river of liquid silver stardust, waving happily as he floated past. In this peaceful dream realm, everything was harmonious, joyful, and serene, reflecting the deep, undisturbed peace of the valley below. He saw Oliver gliding gracefully through the starlit sky, his feathers gleaming like silver thread. Clara sat upon a cloud of glowing herbs, smiling warmly as she poured tea made from stardust. Pip waved from his tiny walnut boat as it floated down a river of golden light. In this dream, all his friends were happy, safe, and united in quiet joy. He saw Oliver gliding gracefully through the starlit sky, his feathers gleaming like silver thread. Barnaby smiled softly in his sleep, his small paws relaxing completely against his sea-green wool quilt. The bedroom was bathed in the dim, tranquil glow of moonlight filtering through the small opening in the window curtains. Outside, the fog remained thick, dense, and protective, insulating the entire cottage from the chill of the late-night hours. It was as if time itself had slowed down to a standstill, allowing every living creature to drink deeply from the refreshing well of rest and renewal. The night was vast, quiet, comforting, and filled to the brim with gentle magic that nurtured every living soul. Barnaby rested deeply, his face peaceful and serene in the soft moonlight that filtered through the curtains. His cottage was a haven of stillness, holding back the cold night and surrounding him with warmth. Time seemed to stand still, allowing his mind and body to absorb the full, restorative power of unbroken sleep. Barnaby rested deeply, his face peaceful and serene in the soft moonlight that filtered through the curtains. His cottage was a haven of stillness, holding back the cold night and surrounding him with warmth. Deep within the fertile soil beneath the cottage, the sleeping seeds and roots rested quietly, nourished by the damp air that the fog brought to the earth. Nature was quietly at work in the darkness, restoring energy, repairing leaves, and preparing new growth for the coming season. Yet all of this essential work was accomplished without noise, hurry, or struggle, effortlessly unfolding in perfect harmony with the natural rhythm of the earth. Barnaby's own body was doing the exact same thing, resting, healing, and restoring itself so that he would wake up feeling refreshed and joyful for a bright new day full of wonder. Underneath the quiet earth, nature performed its silent miracle of restoration. Roots absorbed life-giving moisture from the damp fog, while leaves rested and prepared for the coming dawn. Everything grew, healed, and renewed itself in the quiet darkness, guided by the ancient wisdom of the natural world. Barnaby slept deeply, his body harmonizing with the quiet strength of the earth. Underneath the quiet earth, nature performed its silent miracle of restoration. Roots absorbed life-giving moisture from the damp fog, while leaves rested and prepared for the coming dawn. The steady, measured tick of the old wooden clock in the hallway sounded like a gentle heartbeat echoing through the quiet house. Tick, tock, slow, steady, and reassuring, marking the passage of peaceful midnight hours. Each soft tick was a comforting reminder that all was well, that safety and absolute quiet surrounded the cottage, and that sleep was performing its wonderful, healing work upon his body. Barnaby shifted slightly in his bed, turning onto his side and tucking his tail comfortably around his nose, keeping extra cozy, warm, and snug under his thick wool quilt as the night deepened. The hallway clock ticked with a slow, reassuring cadence, marking the peaceful hours of the night. Tick, tock, a gentle pulse of comfort that assured the house that all was well. Barnaby snuggled deeper into his quilt, turning onto his side and pulling his plush tail close to his chin for extra warmth. The hallway clock ticked with a slow, reassuring cadence, marking the peaceful hours of the night. Tick, tock, a gentle pulse of comfort that assured the house that all was well. High above the dense blanket of fog, the celestial constellation of the Great Bear drifted slowly across the midnight sky, its distant stars sparkling with cold, clear light. Yet down below in the valley, wrapped tightly in the thick mist, the air remained mild, sheltered, and wonderfully soft against the earth. The fog acted like a giant thermal comforter, keeping the nighttime chill far away and preserving the gentle warmth of the soil. It was a true gift of nature, crafted specifically to protect the valley's peaceful slumber and keep every creature warm and secure until morning light returned. High above the valley, the stars spun their quiet dance across the cosmos, constant and eternal. Below, the blanket of fog kept the valley warm and sheltered, protecting every sleeping flower, bird, and forest animal from the midnight frost. Nature's blanket was complete and perfect, offering warmth and sanctuary to all living things. High above the valley, the stars spun their quiet dance across the cosmos, constant and eternal. Below, the blanket of fog kept the valley warm and sheltered, protecting every sleeping flower, bird, and forest animal from the midnight frost. As the middle of the night arrived, the fog reached its peak density. It filled every valley nook, every quiet ravine, and every woodland clearing. Standing anywhere in Whispering Willow Valley, one would feel entirely secluded from the rest of the world, wrapped in a private sanctuary of soft white mist. There were no worries here, no noisy distractions, no fast-paced demands from the outside world. There was only the eternal, soothing presence of quiet nature, wrapping her beloved children in arms of love, safety, and deep, restful sleep that restored every spirit to perfect balance and calm. The fog reached its fullest depth, filling every hollow and ravine with pure white mist. Whispering Willow Valley was completely cut off from the noise of the outside world, transformed into a secret world of quiet peace and rest. Within this misty sanctuary, every heart was calm and every mind was still. The fog reached its fullest depth, filling every hollow and ravine with pure white mist. Whispering Willow Valley was completely cut off from the noise of the outside world, transformed into a secret world of quiet peace and rest. Barnaby's dream continued to drift peacefully like a quiet boat on a calm, glass-like lake. He dreamed of gentle rain falling softly on wide green lotus leaves, each raindrop making a sweet musical plink that resonated with deep relaxation throughout his body. He dreamed of walking through an endless forest of giant silver ferns, where the air was sweet, cool, and fragrant, and where every single step brought a profound feeling of lightness and quiet joy. His sleep was deep, dreamful, continuous, and completely free from any troubling thoughts or restless energy, anchored in total peace. Barnaby dreamed of swimming through a calm, warm ocean of liquid moonlight, surrounded by friendly sea creatures made of glowing starlight. The water felt weightless and refreshing, washing away every last trace of weariness. His dream was full of peaceful beauty, bringing deep joy and contentment to his resting soul. Barnaby dreamed of swimming through a calm, warm ocean of liquid moonlight, surrounded by friendly sea creatures made of glowing starlight. The water felt weightless and refreshing, washing away every last trace of weariness. In the cozy living room, the very last embers of the fireplace gave off a faint, fading glow before gently turning to cool gray ash. But the cottage retained its snug warmth, built from thick cedar logs that held the heat inside like a warm coat. The interior air was rich with the pleasant scent of pine wood, dried lavender, and sweet cinnamon tea, creating an ideal environment for deep, continuous rest. Every corner of the home was filled with a rich sense of peace that had accumulated over many quiet years of simple, contented living in Whispering Willow Valley. Inside the cottage, the air remained wonderfully mild, scenting of cedar logs, lavender, and sweet dried apples. The home had sheltered many generations of peaceful lives, accumulating an aura of love, safety, and tranquil energy. Barnaby slept soundly within its sturdy walls, completely protected and at peace. Inside the cottage, the air remained wonderfully mild, scenting of cedar logs, lavender, and sweet dried apples. The home had sheltered many generations of peaceful lives, accumulating an aura of love, safety, and tranquil energy. Outside the cottage door, a small night moth with soft velvet wings fluttered gently through the mist, landing quietly on a dew-covered leaf. It sat there motionless, resting its wings in the peaceful darkness. Even the tiny insects of the night moved with a quiet reverence, respecting the deep slumber that held the valley in its soothing grip. The entire world was at rest, united in a shared state of peaceful renewal, wrapped in the comforting embrace of the cozy blanket of fog as the silver moon watched over them all with quiet affection. A tiny moth rested on a leaf outside the window, its wings folded in silent meditation. The night belonged to quietness and rest. Not a single creature rushed or worried, all yielded to the quiet law of nature that commanded rest and rejuvenation under the gentle blanket of fog. A tiny moth rested on a leaf outside the window, its wings folded in silent meditation. The night belonged to quietness and rest. Not a single creature rushed or worried, all yielded to the quiet law of nature that commanded rest and rejuvenation under the gentle blanket of fog. As the late-night hours slowly transitioned toward the early morning, the fog began to shift almost imperceptibly across the meadow floor. It didn't vanish, but settled lower into the dark soil, feeding the meadow grasses and wildflowers with fine, nourishing moisture. The air remained quiet, cool, and wonderfully still. Inside the cottage, Barnaby remained fast asleep, resting deeply in his soft feather bed, his breathing remaining long, even, smooth, and perfectly tranquil as the peaceful hours floated gently by without a single sound to disturb his sweet sleep. As the night progressed toward the early morning, the fog settled deeper into the rich soil, leaving the sky clear and starlit above. The air was cool and crisp, full of vitality and life. Barnaby continued to sleep deeply, his breathing long and peaceful, untroubled by any thought of the coming day. As the night progressed toward the early morning, the fog settled deeper into the rich soil, leaving the sky clear and starlit above. The air was cool and crisp, full of vitality and life. Barnaby continued to sleep deeply, his breathing long and peaceful, untroubled by any thought of the coming day. In his quiet sleep, Barnaby felt a subtle, deep-seated sense of safety that encompassed not just his room, but the entire valley and every single creature living within it. He knew that when morning eventually arrived, the golden sun would rise gently over Misty Ridge, warming the mist and slowly lifting the blanket of fog to reveal a fresh, bright world. But for now, there was no need to think of the morning. The night was still long, dark, quiet, and wonderfully cozy, inviting him to remain in his deep state of rest and peaceful dreams. In his quiet sleep, Barnaby felt a deep, abiding confidence that tomorrow would bring new joy, beauty, and peaceful adventures. But tonight was for resting, for allowing the body and spirit to drink from the silent waters of peace. He snuggled closer into his blanket, enjoying the pure luxury of unbroken slumber. In his quiet sleep, Barnaby felt a deep, abiding confidence that tomorrow would bring new joy, beauty, and peaceful adventures. But tonight was for resting, for allowing the body and spirit to drink from the silent waters of peace. A soft nighttime breeze whispered through the high leafy branches of the giant oak tree above the cottage, causing a few loose leaves to sway gently back and forth. The sound was like a tender brushstroke on a canvas of silence, adding a touch of natural melody to the quiet night. Inside his bedroom, Barnaby snuggled even closer into his warm blankets, completely surrounded by comfort, peace, serenity, and absolute safety. The world was quiet, his heart was light, and his spirit was completely at rest within the gentle shelter of home. The oak tree above the roof swayed gently in the nighttime breeze, its leaves rustling like a soft lullaby played on a wooden harp. The sound was comforting and familiar, a song that Barnaby had heard every night of his life. He smiled in his sleep, wrapped in love, comfort, and peaceful dreams. The oak tree above the roof swayed gently in the nighttime breeze, its leaves rustling like a soft lullaby played on a wooden harp. The sound was comforting and familiar, a song that Barnaby had heard every night of his life. The sprig of fresh lavender beneath his pillow continued to release its gentle, soothing fragrance, easing his senses and keeping his mind calm and quiet. Dream after dream floated through his sleep, each one softer and more relaxing than the last. He floated on soft clouds of pale pink silk, walked through fields of glowing blue wildflowers, and listened to the gentle songs of distant waterfalls flowing smoothly into quiet, clear lakes. His sleep was a continuous journey of beauty, quietness, and deep emotional peace that filled his heart with warmth. The lavender beneath his pillow continued to diffuse its relaxing essence, guiding his dreams through beautiful landscapes of peaceful forests, glowing meadows, and tranquil streams. Every dream was a gentle journey of wonder, filling his sleeping mind with harmony and joy. The lavender beneath his pillow continued to diffuse its relaxing essence, guiding his dreams through beautiful landscapes of peaceful forests, glowing meadows, and tranquil streams. Every dream was a gentle journey of wonder, filling his sleeping mind with harmony and joy. The lavender beneath his pillow continued to diffuse its relaxing essence, guiding his dreams through beautiful landscapes of peaceful forests, glowing meadows, and tranquil streams. Every breath Barnaby drew in brought deep physical rest to his body. Every breath he let out released any remaining quiet fatigue from his muscles. His mind was as clear, still, and peaceful as a mirror-like forest pond at dawn, undisturbed by even a single ripple. He was completely surrendered to the moment, resting deeply in the quiet heart of the universe. The blanket of fog outside kept its faithful watch, ensuring that nothing disturbed his restful sleep until the dawn brought a new day of joy and wonder. Out in the surrounding meadows, the sleepy field mice were nestled tightly together in their underground burrows, warm, snug, and content. Wise old Oliver the owl was resting quietly on his oak branch, his head tucked neatly beneath his soft speckled feather wing. Clara the badger was sleeping soundly in her carpeted burrow, dreaming of spring herb gardens. Everyone in Whispering Willow Valley was resting peacefully, bound together in a shared experience of safety and quiet harmony under the watchful protection of the night and the fog. Across the valley, all the woodland friends slept on in their cozy burrows, nests, and hollow trees. The hedgehogs, the owls, the field mice, and the badgers were all resting deeply, united in peace under the same starry sky and the same protective blanket of fog. Across the valley, all the woodland friends slept on in their cozy burrows, nests, and hollow trees. The hedgehogs, the owls, the field mice, and the badgers were all resting deeply, united in peace under the same starry sky and the same protective blanket of fog. Across the valley, all the woodland friends slept on in their cozy burrows, nests, and hollow trees. The cozy blanket of fog remained draped over the landscape like a sacred blessing of silence, comfort, and protection. It softened every outline in the world, hushed every noise, and brought a profound, soothing calm to all living things. As the bright stars slowly turned in their eternal, graceful dance across the dark velvet sky, the valley slept on in complete, undisturbed harmony, drinking deeply from the peaceful fountain of nighttime rest and emerging restored, quiet, and filled with gentle peace. The cozy blanket of fog held the valley in its loving embrace until the very end of the night. It hushed every sound, softened every shadow, and brought a divine quietness to the sleeping earth. The world was whole, peaceful, and beautifully at rest. The cozy blanket of fog held the valley in its loving embrace until the very end of the night. It hushed every sound, softened every shadow, and brought a divine quietness to the sleeping earth. The world was whole, peaceful, and beautifully at rest. The cozy blanket of fog held the valley in its loving embrace until the very end of the night. Barnaby rested deeply and peacefully in his cozy wooden cottage, wrapped securely in his sea-green wool quilt with the sweet scent of lavender on his pillow. His heart was full of peace, his home was safe and warm, and his dreams were sweet and serene. As the quiet night gently held Whispering Willow Valley in its soft, misty arms, Barnaby slept on in perfect peace, knowing that all was right and safe in his cozy, quiet world. Good night, Barnaby. Good night, Whispering Willow Valley. Sleep well, sweet world. Barnaby slept deeply and peacefully in his cozy wooden cottage, wrapped securely in his sea-green wool quilt with the sweet scent of lavender on his pillow. His heart was full of peace, his home was safe and warm, and his dreams were sweet and serene. As the quiet night gently held Whispering Willow Valley in its soft, misty arms, Barnaby slept on in perfect peace, knowing that all was right and safe in his cozy, quiet world. Barnaby slept deeply and peacefully in his cozy wooden cottage, wrapped securely in his sea-green wool quilt with the sweet scent of lavender on his pillow.